Hello guys and welcome to a little thingy here. So hopefully maybe you wanted to join the Opera GX game jam but you're not sure where to start. What is an endless runner? What is basically required of you? So here we will together and hopefully under 20 minutes, but I don't think so, 25 to 30 I would say, if I copy paste stuff very fast, and then we're gonna check all the boxes what an endless runner is, and of course these things which they wanted. So they wanted single player and local multiplayer. So we got two UFOs, and then of course if one hits one of those asteroids, boom, we reset the game, and of course the score is getting reset too. And this is pretty much it. Pretty easy peasy stuff. So let's get into the good stuff. So this is the whole Opera GX game jam, blah 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 blah. The theme was UFO, so I guess I covered it more or less. And then the target platform is HTML. This is what you saw in front of you, and then they say, like, for example, do something like this where you are avoiding asteroids. But I don't like the Kenny assets. They're pretty good, but I don't know. I prefer pixel art, so I'm gonna do it a little bit different here. So all the stuff which you can find is on opengameart.org. So here all that stuff was free, of course, links in the description below. And of course the whole project will be free, so you can download it and check it out if you like. So I guess it could be a learning experience, so please watch the video till the end. If not, just get the project, I guess. Alrighty, so how can we start? This is the whole project, just a few things, and I'm gonna kill everything because now it is filled with stuff, and then we're gonna go step by step. Alright, see you after a quick cut. Alrighty, so I cleared everything and we can definitely start. A few things, of course, the sprites are at the beginning or there, so I don't want to bore you where I get my sprites and all that stuff. I just have a few icons so you can actually check out and distinguish, like, okay, this is this, this is that, and so it is a little bit clearer if I just drag it into the room. So the first thing which we want to have is our UFO, and it consists of two parts. So one thing which is here centered in the middle, so here middle center, and then it can rotate, so it has a nice little effect. And then I draw that thing, and then I draw that thing over the first. So these are basically little blinking animations, and then this one will fade out between a few alpha values, so between 0 and I forgot it, 0.6 or whatever, and then it's overlaying this one, and then we just draw that stuff all over. Alrighty, so how can we do this? Well, let's start with our neat little thing, and for that we just have a room. This one will be for players 1, and this will be our default, and later on we will clone it to make it happen. So the first thing, come on, this is normally 0, and then we just go and give it a nice background sprite. This already looks pretty neat, and therefore we want it to animate, and therefore we just go here under, if we are on the background here, and then horizontal speed, let's go -3, then check it out how it does look like. Yep, and now we got an endless run. Of course, these options are not available at the very beginning, so you need to click them. So for example, if I would run it like this, it would go away. Not the best idea. First of all, we want it to stretch, so it always adapts to the screen, which is important. And then, for example, it still goes away, and therefore we just say, like, hey, repeat horizontally, and then we start it, boom, our scrolling is finished. And this is pretty much it. Then the next thing which we want to do is put our little player in there. So here so here nothing in there. The first thing which we want to do is assign it a neat little sprite. So first of all, this is the hollowed out outer shell, and then we want to drag it into the room. There one, somewhere here, it doesn't really matter. Let's go in the middle. Okay, and then we want to do something with it. So the first thing which would be of interest is to give it some, well, step event and a create event. And here we're gonna do a few basic things. So first of all, we want to what do we want? First of all, we want to make it a little bit bigger, because as you can see, it's kind of small. This is of course optional, and therefore we just say, like, hey, give it a var size. So we just create a quick temporal variable, and that one we will use to increase the image X scale and Y scale. So for now, this is of course smaller, but during the game it will do make it a little bit bigger. This is good because it's a little bit nicer to look at. The next thing, we want to have a rotation, and for that we just, I don't know, create a variable which we call spin amount. Call it whatever you like. I just go with minus values and then it rotates nicely to that, and we just go and say image angle. So basically this is your rotation, and we just add the spin amount, and then for example once we start it, and then as you can see, nice little thing, and it's there, it's a little double size, and then we got our background, and then it rotates nicely. Alrighty, this is good enough for us. Go back to GameMaker, and we want to do a few other things. So first of all, we were just spinning around this hollow thing, and for now this is good enough. Later on, as optional content, at the very latest part, we will do this kind of shadowy dash and the blinking animation, because this is optional in my opinion. But let's go on with the more interesting part, or the most important part. We want to have, well, movement, and for that we just check like, hey, our keyboard, because why not, and then we store it into the up and down variable if we are pressing the up key or the down key of our keyboard. And with that kind of thing, we just say like, hey, if we have, for example, pressed up, we update our Y position, and if we press down, we update it also. As you can see, we are using 3 as a number, so 3 pixels. We go, if we press upwards, so minus, and then we go downwards, +3. And don't get confused that it's plus plus. You can of course go something like this, and then go with different kind of values, but I like actually how that works. So plus equals, and then you see, okay, we want to add -3 each time, and here we want to add +3 each time. I guess this reads a little bit cleaner. Of course you can go with equals minus, but we're gonna skip on this part. Of course now we can test it, and let's check it out. We can go up and we can go down, but of course we can go outside the view, which isn't the best idea. And therefore we're gonna use a little thingy here. We just go, hey, because this is then relative, go away. We just say like, hey, if our Y value of our UFO, I guess minus, let's go for example the room height, so at the very bottom point, then minus, let's say 39 or whatever you want to have, and then we just push it upwards back again. If you're saying like we are, well, too low, or for example if we are too high, so for example if we are almost outside of the screen, we just say like no, let's push it upwards and down. For example now this is kind of clamping ourselves without any kind of collision system or whatever. It's just saying like, hey, don't go out of bounds, and that stuff is always relative, because later on we will change the size of the whole thingy here, and then of course this will change a little bit how the game works, but everything is relative because this is HTML and stuff. Therefore relativity is a good thing. Alrighty, then the next thing which we want to do. So the next thing which we want to do is have Asteroid. Set it up. As you can see, nothing is in here. Let me check my Asteroid code. It's in there. We want it to spin also. So we just go create a variable, call that spin amount also, 0.1 if you like. And then we need to do the same stuff in the step event which we did for our UFO, because then it definitely looks better. And then for example what we can do is for testing, put one of those thingies in here, and then you will see that it rotates. But we're gonna skip on that because it's not that important. Now we come to the more interesting part, our spawner. So this is an object which we place, doesn't really matter where we place it, we just place it in here, make it huge. But of course this is outside of the screen, so you cannot see it anyway, but it is super. So basically it will just do what it's supposed to do, spawn stuff. So let's go in our spawner, or everything is opened. Go into our spawner and check out what we can actually do. So the first thing which is actually shown in the thingy here is like, hey, if you want to do some obstacles and generate them, it's maybe not the worst idea to use, well, alarms, which is definitely not the worst idea. So let's clone that thingy here, and then we just say like, hey, create a variable which we call spawn time. So basically every 60 seconds, 60 steps, so basically every second, we would create one of our asteroids. This is okay, but we're gonna modify it a little bit and say like, nah. First of all, if you, for example, do this alarm 0 and then spawn time, it would say like every second spawn a new asteroid. So basically this is already looping. Of course you can go alarm set and then index and then you go 0 and that thing. Basically 2 ways to do the same thing. So here you can check out which one you feel most comfortable with. It doesn't really matter, it's all the same. And then now what we're gonna do is instance create, and we're gonna create what? Our Asteroid, of course. So here, let's make this a little bit easier. And of course we want to get a few values, which are, for example, first of all, we want to create outside of the screen. So here our room width, which we're going to change later on. So as you can see, everything will be relative. So we're taking a room width plus a little bit buffer. So somewhere over here, we want to create our asteroid so they can fly inside, well, our room and then fly outside. And then we want to create it along this point and a little bit buffer. So basically not from the 0 point and then room height point, but a little bit 0 plus, let's say 30, 40, 50 or whatever. And then room height minus 40, 50 or something. And then we got a nice little box where everything is being spawned. So this is what we're going to do. And for that, we need to get a few things, which are called get X and get Y. And as you can see here, this will always stay relative, which is the great part about this code, that we can just say like, hey, first of all, I want to go room width. So somewhere at this line. So directly, and then plus 50, and then plus random range, or random range, doesn't really matter. Then between 0 and 75, so basically it could be somewhere here, or it's just at the relative X position. So the next thing is then go between a buffer, let's say 0, but here we just said like a little bit more, and then room height minus this buffer as 20. And then these two values, X and Y, boom, we're gonna add them to the position where we want to spawn our asteroid, and this already works. So let's check it out. Well, yeah, we'll check it out, and nothing will happen. Righty, this is that was pretty pointless to do because we need to give our asteroid a few things as instructions. So the first thing we just say like, yeah, let's give it a speed value, and this speed value will be between two values which I'm gonna assign at the very beginning. So here we just call a pass. We could just call it as pass in values. Why is that important? Because these values later on will be increased all the time, and therefore once we create our little asteroid here, it will increase also. So we have a speed min, speed max value, and then we just say like, hey, random range. Now we're just going to copy paste that because I'm lazy as always. And then we just do something like this. So we just said like, hey, our speed is between the minimum value and the maximum value. And for now, this would work alrighty. But we want to create kind of a difficulty spike in that we just say like, hey, how many spawns are we having? So we create a little nice variable, which we call spawns. And here I would go at the very beginning with higher values, but here doesn't really matter. And then we just go each time we are triggering our alarms, we just say like, hey, minus minus. And then, for example, if we have too little spawns, we reset our spawns. So basically we just say like, oh, okay, so it's time to update a few values. And what do we update? Well, our min and max value. So first of all, we just check like, hey, we have spawned enough, and then we reset this kind of value, and then of course then it will trigger down again. But here I just go with 2, which is very, very low. So here just keep in mind, this is just so you see very, very quickly that stuff is getting harder and harder exponentially, almost exponentially. And then we just say like, hey, plus equals, let's go for, I don't know, what did I go for? 1.5 or yeah, so 1.5 is being added to each new asteroid, which is quite a lot. And then we just need to give it a direction, and then because we want to go from left to the right, and then direction is 180, so 0 would be to the right, to the left it would be 180, downwards 270, and upwards is 90, and of course in between, well, all the other values. So let's check it out now, and now it of course works. Alrighty, so as you can see, this already works pretty neatly, and of course here the speed is getting faster and faster and faster and faster. They're getting really, really fast because after 2 spawns the speed is getting really, really fast and increasing, and then therefore at some point it will be difficult to control. Okay, so let's go back to the game, stop it, and then, well, give it a few more random parameters. This is of course, once again, optional content. You just go, hey, give it a size, and then we just say like, hey, scale it upwards between, let's say, the original size. The original size is quite big of the asteroid, so our asteroids, what's the size of one? So it's 160 pixels, so already centered in the middle, of course. It's quite huge, and therefore, well, we just put it a little bit downwards. One of the things, for example, if you do just this, do a manual collision mask and make it a little bit smaller, because once it rotates, the collision mask becomes a little bit wonky. This is part of GameMaker, you cannot really do anything about this. Or you make it a precise collision, and then it becomes a little bit, let's call it not fast or performing, and we need to have a performing, fast, easy peasy game. Of course you can do this, but nah. So once we finished that, we can have well, our things. So as you can see, we already created our spawner and so on, and everything is working fine. But now we are producing infinite asteroids and instances, and this is not good because at some point we are creating a bit many too few, and therefore I just have a little thingy here. So this is just called a clearer. You can call it whatever you like. Give it a sprite. This is just basically a rectangle, like 64 by 64, or let's make this smaller. It doesn't really matter because this is just for you. So you place it outside of the room. So here we just place it into our room. So the clearer. So here, this dude, and then we just gonna say like, hey, bigger, and then we can actually zoom out a little bit. Of course this is definitely overkill, but let's go, it doesn't really matter. And once, for example, an asteroid goes in here, it will be destroyed. So how can we do this? Quite easy. We just go at an event, have a collision with whom, with an asteroid, and then we just say, hey, instance destroy. But of course we want not to destroy ourselves but the other, and then all the instances of the asteroids are getting wiped. And then what we want to do is update the points. So each time we have successfully dodged one of those asteroids coming in, we want to increase points. And GameMaker Studio has a thing which is in there, which is called score. Yeah, score. And we just update it by, I don't know, 50 or whatever. And boom, we have that. This thing is in scope. In global, it is being stored somewhere outside of all our control, but we can use it. It will become obsolete at some point. They just say like, don't use it. We're going to use it anyway. And therefore, we just update it by 50. And now the next thing is then, well, we want to display that on the screen. And then the best case would be, or one of the cases would be, to have it here where it doesn't annoy us too much. For example, if we would put our score in here, we could overlap with our player. Not the best idea, and therefore top right corner. So we just go our room width, and then I don't know, plus 50 or whatever, and then it will stay relative at this position. So the first thing which we need to do is then, for example, create our font. So here, create font, Arial or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Go up for 20, make it the black one so it's really thick, and then this is good enough for us. And then we need a little controller for the level, which we're gonna input inside the current level also. So we just put it in there. Of course, this thing is empty. And then what we want to do is draw our font in there. Just gonna copy paste that, control level, give me a little second, because I don't wanna do that thing. So basically we just say like, hey, draw text transform, blah, 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 blah. And then the thing which we want to draw is basically our score. And then, well, position is room width minus 100. So basically we are here drawing our font. And then 50, so basically 50 pixels downwards, so somewhere here. And then the rest you can pretty much skip. So this is X scale and Y scale, so make it a little bit bigger. Then angle 0, and then let's make it orange, and then let's make it visible. This is pretty much it. No special thing in here. One thing which we need to understand is because everything first of all needs to be set. First of all we need to say like, hey, we want to use actually this font. So we just say draw set font, and then the font which we created. So this dude here, and then we need to set the new alignment, because now it's going from what is it, center? I guess it's going from left to right, which we don't want. We want to go to the right point. Why is that? So draw set H align F right, because here we have a fixed point, and then everything is being drawn from this fixed point to the left and not to the right, because then it would, if for example, if a score would be too big, it would be going outside, and then this is definitely not good. Then the last thing which we want to do, this is optional, there's a little thingy here, it's called randomize, and then everything in the game is getting randomized. So let's check it out. Alrighty, so this is already looking good. Of course, we haven't set up any collision as a parameter, but as you can see, this is running pretty fast, and then boom, 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 each time a thing is getting cleared, our score is getting updated. Awesome. Alrighty, so this is already pretty good. Let's go back then to our thingy here. So we need to have, of course, a win and lose condition. So we just say, hey, collision with what? With the asteroid. And then we just say like, okay, we have collided with our asteroid. This is definitely not what we want. And therefore we just say like, okay, if we have a collision, what do? Well, we go to the room which is the same one which we are in here. So basically our room players, which one player. So here, this thing here, we just basically reload the whole thing, and then by reloading we restart everything, and then everything is getting wiped. This is definitely what we want to have. And of course our score is getting wiped also, because I guess it's bound only to the level which it is in there. So this is one of those inherent things here. And this is pretty much it. And of course we need to, this is of course a little bit forward thinking from my side. We could jump directly to that if we wanted, but let's go, for example, we make a little distinction because we want to reuse our player one for multiplayer or for single player, and therefore we just say like, hey, in which room are we? So if we are in this room, well, then let's go to this room, and for example, we just double. And then for example, if we are in players 2, we just go to 2-player room. So here a little win or lose condition. Alrighty, so here this already works. So for example, let's check it out. Okay, so let's go for a collision. Come on. And then boom, everything is getting reset. As you can see, we cannot go outside. We cannot go up and down. Let's check out if the score is getting wiped. Okay, let's check out if the score is getting wiped. Come on. Oh, I'm too big. Yeah, I'm definitely too big. So maybe I should make this UFO a little bit smaller or the screen bigger, because as you can see, the difficulty spike is pretty decent now. Alright, it doesn't really matter. it works, at least I think so. Okay, so what would be the next thing to do? So we already, to recapitulate, we have a player, a spawner, a control thing. The player can go up and down, it rotates, and then the loot condition is we hitting an asteroid. Then here we have a spawner, which is just spawning stuff, and therefore our game could be finished if we like. And here now we go to the territory, which is optional. For that I'm gonna do a second video, so if you just wanted to know how to do that, we are pretty much finished. And then if you want to know a little bit more, stay tuned, I guess, tomorrow. Alrighty, see you, bye bye.